Hello, everybody. We're back here at the Carnival, and we actually have a question for you. How about that local sports team? Rob, how about that local sports team?
I don't know about it, but I'm actually going to say I'm kind of bummed this week. You know, we had the American Moondogs on last week, which was alt country. This would make a really good country song. I didn't want to talk about it then, but okay, I have to get this out of my system, then we'll move on. I got no coffee again, and somebody scarfed my $20.
Yeah, my wallet was a bit light.
So maybe we'll get some other gifts. Who knows? But
You never know.
that was not very sporting of him.
No. Oh, sporty. But speaking of that, we realized that through all the stuff we've done, we haven't really talked some of America's favorite pastimes, that being professional, amateur, and weird sports. And for me, growing up in a city such as Pittsburgh, it's a very large sports market with a couple professional teams. It's got us to thinking, and you and I have had many a conversation about this, how many different great athletes we may have seen. But what was if you can recall, what was your first real introduction to professional sports? Who was it? Who did you see? What was going on? Because I know Rochester, since the Royals left, haven't had a pro
We're not
team.
a very big basketball city. What's amazing, we had the Rochester Royals, which are now the Sacramento Kings.
Yes.
They've gone through the Kansas City Kings.
Yes.
And
Omaha.
one of the things was, they've always said you're either a hockey town or a basketball town, which makes no sense because how many towns have NBA and NHL franchises?
Right.
But we had a team called the Rochester Zeniths in the early 80s. Mario Panaggio was the coach, and he was sort of legendary. He passed away last year. They were great. They got no one.
Yeah.
Pretty much it was sad because they won the CBA championship
So they were
with
CBA.
nobody, whereas our Rochester Amherst, the Americans,
Yeah.
they've always constantly drawn very, very well. And they've gone through a lot of teams. I think the Canucks were actually an owner for a while. The Capitals were. If you look in the early 70s, the Bruins...
Really?
Oh, yeah, there were
I
the
didn't know the
Bruins
Bruins.
before that, because there was the connection with Don Cherry. Before the
Oh,
Sabres.
that's right. Yeah.
And then,
because
Don Cherry's very big into Rochester because he played with the Amherst.
played with the Amherst, coached the Amherst, and I believe he met his wife in Rochester, from what I've read.
And then the Sabres, obviously.
Yeah.
And we had the Red Wings, they were the Red Wings because they were the Cardinals franchise.
Well, wasn't there a time period when the Panthers were part of the Amherst? The Florida Panthers?
They could have been, because I know a lot of these went twisted. And we're very sports by proxy in Rochester, where people will glom onto the Bills, Syracuse.
Well,
which is why a lot of times I don't like those teams, just because they might be fine, but...
Well, because I've always found it weird, because growing up in a town that had 3 of the 4 professional sports teams, hockey, baseball, football, we never had a basketball team in my lifetime.
We had the Fish that saved Pittsburgh.
Well, yeah, back in, I think, the 40s and 50s, even actually up until maybe the 70s, they had a pro basketball team, but I never really, so I grew up never really following basketball.
Did you go on to Duquesne or any of those around there?
No. I mean, my most of my family were alumni of the University of Pittsburgh, so we kind of followed them, but I never really grew up watching basketball.
If we go back to where we first saw some of these sports, I can tell you for basketball, it's going to come from a different source. It was the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, see, my dad and my grandfather went to see the Harlem Globetrotters, and the halftime show was Cab Calloway.
Ours was fun. It wasn't that, though. But And I remember in the day, too, did you say the Washington Generals, they beat them how many times? Once out of
a handful of times out of tens of or thousands, maybe tens of thousands of games.
What was the one thing they were screwing around?
Well,
they were
the
behind.
Globetrotters were screwing around, as per usual, entertaining the crowd. And by the time they realized there was 3 minutes left in the game, they were down. So they switched to playing normal basketball. And don't forget, for all their showmanship, these guys were great basketball players.
Oh, they could beat a lot of NBA teams.
And they couldn't. And they ended up, and the Generals kind of stopped, and were like, okay, we need to let them win, but the Generals were still trying to play, and they could, and the Globetrotters lost.
There would literally be like Frank Williams beating Harley Race.
What was it? I think it was Meadowlark Lemon said it looked like they'd killed Santa Claus because of all the kids were crying.
And this is a little not really off the subject. I was thinking about this the other night. Was it kayfabe a little or not? They were told you have to try to win. It was not throwing the games.
They weren't throwing the game.
They just had better guys playing them.
Yeah, well, the Generals weren't awful. It's just the Globetrotters were better.
And the poor manager, player, coach, or whatever, he's got probably the worst sporting record in history.
Yeah.
And the Globetrotters, I mean, think about the NBA, the Naismith Hall of Fame, how many Globetrotters are in there. There's a lot of them.
Well, let's see. Wilt Chamberlain had a cup of coffee
Geese Osby.
Geese Osby, Meadowlark Lemon.
Yep.
Marquise
Williams.
Is Curly Neal in?
Yeah, I think so.
Tate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. And one of the things that's going to come up for me a lot is as a kid, WWR, Channel 9 on New York is where I had a lot of my first exposure to sports, really, because that's where my mom was a big New York Knicks fan. They had the Knicks and the Nets on, so we would watch the Knicks and the Nets, and they would always be on, so that's where I'd see a lot of those games. But NHL was weird for me. Like, for you growing up in Pittsburgh, did you just go to the games?
I would go to the games, yeah, so I saw a lot. By the time I was getting to the point where I was really starting to understand that would have been right around the time Jágr was drafted. So 1990, and the man is still playing hockey, by the way. He's going to play
in the Czech Republic right now.
Yeah, he's in the Czech
He's
Republic
under contract
right
to
now.
the Flames, I think.
I think, yeah, they still own his contract.
He's one of those guys, probably, you'll never be in the Hall of Fame because you have to stop playing.
He'll never retire, but I remember because somebody in Pittsburgh figured out that if you rearrange the letters in his first name, Jaromir, it was Mario Jr. So that's when... so I got to see Lemieux, I got to see Jágr in the two Stanley Cups in the 90s.
And what was funny as well, I think, is he didn't know much English, so I think, what could he say, blue jeans and french fries for quite a while?
From what I remember, they would bring him on the local talk radio stations, would bring him on there to read the news stories and to do the weather, and that's how that helped him learn English, because he came right over from, at the time, Czechoslovakia, but he's actually Czech, not Slovak.
But for me, this is interesting for hockey. Besides the Amerks, the first place I ever started really watching hockey, this will surprise you, it was WXI, because they had the Stanley Cup playoffs on.
Oh.
And I remember still one of the games that sticks out in my head was the 79 almost semifinals, whatever it is, between the Bruins and the Canadians, where finally Don Cherry said it was the two nails in his coffin because they played the Canadians. The Bruins and Canadians were the big rivalry in the 70s. And these games, the big bad Bruins. But then Montreal had the dynasty. Montreal had the dynasty going, but they were down by a goal. And what happened, they were down by a goal, about 2 minutes left. There's something happened where Cherry did something really boneheaded. There were too many men on the ice or some other killer play. It's in his book, Grapes. And he said it was either Guy Lafleur or another player got a goal and tied it with under 2 minutes. Then in overtime, the Canadians won.
That's harsh.
And then they went on to beat the Rangers. And that was the thing with Stan Jonathan, who was yay tall, not very tall, broke the nose of Pierre Bouchard, who was the big goon from Montreal. I saw Stan Jonathan play with the Penguins.
Yeah, that was before.
I saw the Penguins when they stunk, but they were entertaining. That's why I fell in love with them.
Was that pre-84?
It was 83, 84, 85,
Okay, because
sort of around.
84 was the year they drafted Lemieux.
I saw the teams that led to them drafting Lemieux. The Baltimore Skipjacks had... You had minor league and major contracts in hockey, so when you went down, if I could have the same salary, I would rather play with the Skipjacks.
Yeah.
They would play the Amerks. The games would be crazy. In fact, you know this because a player told you
I can't
this.
remember off the top of my head who it was, and because I told him that you had mentioned that the Skipjacks Amerks games were kind of legendarily insane, and he played for the Skipjacks. He said, yeah, he was right. They were nuts.
And what would happen, I could describe the games for you. Skipjacks would take the lead. Be a lot of fights. Yeah. We have to sit around. You would see players come out by where we were sitting because they got kicked out of the game. They all looked like something got a slap shot at the time. They all had the turtlenecks and leather jackets and a beer. And I remember they'd see Skips go, boo, boo. And every time the Amerks would tie it up, Skipjacks would win.
Yeah.
And I got a Skipjacks puck at home somewhere.
Yeah,
They're gone now.
Yeah, the Skipjacks have been gone for some time now.
But those were fun. I still, from my view, and everybody has their view of this, I think, 80s for me was prime time for hockey.
I think, 80s and 90s, because I was just thinking, the number of Hall of Famers just on the Penguins teams when they won the Stanley Cups. You had Mario Lemieux, Paul Coffey, Ron Francis, Joey Mullen, Brian Trottier.
Tom Barrasso will be in there.
Tom Barrasso, well,
he'll be in there. He'll say he'll be in there.
He's U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, but he's not NHL.
Badger Bob.
Yeah, Badger Bob and Scotty Bowman. He was
Herb
the coach.
Brooks, who I think was involved with them as like something.
Yeah,
for
he
a
was
little while.
who's Craig Adams?
Yeah,
He was the GM.
Craig Patrick.
Or Craig Patrick, yeah, sorry. God, I mean, it just that team alone, I got to see so many greats play. I saw Gretzky play near the end of his career.
Well, one of the things you saw, and you actually again got the story about when it was Gretzky, Lemieux, and who was it? Larry Murphy.
Larry Murphy. It was the '87 Canada Cup.
If you want to see hockey, this was magic with the puck. But he's got this is a rare time. We have firsthand account of what really happened.
Well, I had always read that there was a Soviet player at the time. He just turned 21 that day when the game was happening, by the name of Igor Larionov. Had a very good NHL career as well.
Canucks, right?
Believe so.
Yeah, with Vladimir Krutov, the tank.
Yeah. And there was always the infamous 3-on-1 breakaway with Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, and Larry Murphy heading toward the Soviet goalie. And there was the one Soviet defenseman, and the announcers always said it was Igor Larionov. So I wrote to him to request an autograph, and I asked him what it was like to be staring down the barrel of those three. And he said, actually, that wasn't me. That was my teammate, and I'm going to blank on the name, another Russian name. He said, I was behind the play trying to catch up to Lemieux. It didn't work, but I had to try. It's like, okay.
And seeing these guys, it's almost a cry. I remember seeing, because I saw Guy Lafleur, I saw Gretzky, I saw Lemieux. You're seeing Gretzky and thinking, I would always say the Rocket Maurice Richard was the Babe Ruth of hockey in a lot of ways. But for me, that's like saying Babe Ruth or somebody. You see somebody like that.
Yeah, it's like saying who's better, Babe Ruth or Lou Gehrig.
But it's like that. You see Wayne Gretzky, and I saw him in a game against Pittsburgh. He was on a tear. This was the year he had 92 goals and 120 assists.
Yeah, the 200.
And he was
I think
on
that was
a
the
tear.
first of his 200-point
And
seasons.
the Penguins game, okay, there's essence and reality. In reality, it was a joke. It was like 12-2 or something. But in essence, one of the most entertaining games I ever saw. It was just really good. And Gretzky scored like almost 10 points.
Yeah. Well, actually, I want to backtrack to basketball because the first time I really remember watching basketball was the '92 Olympics with the Dream Team.
Oh.
You know, it was John Stockton, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. Was Chris Mullen on that team? I believe he
Probably
was.
was.
You know, but that was David Robinson, I think, was on there.
The other thing about basketball is these are team sports we're talking about, but I think because of the number of players, this is the one you think more of. You'll have the individuals really, like you think of LeBron James. I can't.
Yeah.
Who the heck else is on the Lakers now? I know Rajon Rondo.
Oh, that Lonzo Ball kid whose dad is always in the news.
And I think for me, still, I am a Jordan man.
I remember. I didn't really watch basketball, but I was aware of the Bulls' dominance in the 90s, where they won 4 or 5 championships in the 90s.
Yeah.
So you couldn't not
And there
hear
was a game he played against Utah where he had a really, really bad stomach bug. And Utah could have turned the series, but he still outplayed him.
Yeah.
But I think he's just one of the most incredible athletes. And remember, Portland, you drafted Sam Bowie.
Ooh. But I mean, look at nowadays. Who else is on the Warriors besides Steph Curry?
Durant.
Yeah, exactly. You got 2 guys, and there's what? How many do they keep on the floor? I mean, there's
5.
5. There's 5, but I mean,
And they
on
always
the
have
bench.
the 6 man. I think they have 12, don't they?
Yeah, 12 or 13, but you know, you usually only hear about 1 or 2 players per team.
Have you seen a pro game?
Live?
Yeah.
Never.
I actually saw when I lived in Washington, they were then the Bullets, and they changed the name of the Washington Bullets to the Wizards because of all the murders in Washington.
Oh, God, yeah.
But I saw them in the Celtics. I say it's Celtics. I'm a history major.
I've only seen one basketball game in person. It was when I was looking at colleges in the late 90s. Grinnell College in Iowa. I went out there for a visit. They took me to a game, and I can't remember who they were playing. I just remember that neither team had any defense. They would just run down the court, shoot a 3, and then run back to get a rebound. It was like 250 points scored in that game. It was
College
ridiculous.
basketball is fun to go see. I actually saw NC State against Bonaventure. They still have in Rochester an annual game for whatever reason in December.
Yeah,
and it was a
never figured that
really,
out.
really good time. It was NC State won at the buzzer. And I saw, going to Fisher, of course, I saw a couple Nazareth games.
Yeah, well,
Which I went to because
think
I knew people at
I think I
Nazareth.
saw maybe one game when I was at the U of
But
R.
it's big. I mean, around here, obviously, you have all the Syracuse people. I
Yeah.
lived in D.C. Georgetown was big.
Go to Lions.
And
There's
I would
that big
have-
sign, home of Jim Boeheim.
Even in high school, all the friends of mine, they'd be all going on about the tournament and college hoops. And even in college, my roommate had to stay up to watch UNLV play.
Yeah, but that's actually when I really started getting into it was when I got to college and started following the tournament. Because it was exciting.
Well, one of the things I grew up with, too, is I grew up with the dynasties. Because that was like Showtime with the Lakers, the Celtics.
Yeah.
And my mom always talked about, she loved Tommy Heinsohn, this Kareem Magic. And I remember my friend Rob, we were going to class, and we were all really sad because Magic had to announce his retirement because they said he had AIDS.
Yeah.
And it was really sort of sad that day. That was actually right after we graduated. But that was when the dynasties were around. They had the big dynasties. The players were always Boston.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go back to hockey for a minute because you were blessed in Pittsburgh. Yeah, some great. And Mike Lang.
Well, Mike Lang, if for any of you guys listening that are not from Pittsburgh or hockey fans, well, in Pittsburgh had a rash of legendary sports broadcasters. In baseball, this one was before my time, but in baseball there was the gunner Bob Prince. Football, we had the legendary Myron Cope.
And the only thing I remember from here is not the announcers, but we've had Fred Costello playing Oregon for the Red Wings for decades. Yeah, and he's really good.
Well, we had Vince Lashide, may he rest in peace as well. And
who would have I seen when I went to the Penguins in the '80s playing Oregon?
God,
I don't remember.
It may have been Vince Lashide. Yeah. He very well may have been there that long.
Igloo.
Yeah, at the Igloo, which is now the PPG Center.
We'll get into funny names later.
Yeah, but Mike Lang was famous for his wonderfully colorful phrases. And
please, anybody, if you can decipher these.
Well, my favorite was always "scratch my back with a hacksaw." You had, she wants to sell my monkey. I don't get it. But that's it made sports entertaining because you never knew what he was going to say. And when they're really into it, and it makes you more excited when the announcers are really, really into it.
Well, one of my things I always rag people here who are Yankees fans. And it was kind of funny because Steve Earle played here a while back. He lives in New York, and he said that, well, I'm a Yankees fan. Half the crowd booed him. He was being Steve Earle, fuck you. But one of the things for me is I rag on people. They ask, why are you a Yankees fan? Oh, well, it's New York. They're close. I go, Boston is. I literally figured out Boston was the same distance from here. But Pittsburgh and Toronto are closer. So.
Geographically, I would say Toronto would be the closest professional market.
And Pittsburgh, I think the team came around like the turn of the century.
What?
The Pirates.
They were
They had a green uniform, and I know that because I saw it at Cooperstown.
They were in the first World Series in 1903 against the Boston Americans.
And they
because I remember in 2003, and this is the only time I've ever seen an American League team play, the Boston Red Sox came into Pittsburgh for the 100th anniversary of the first World Series, and it was actually the first time they'd played since then, which you play 162 games a year, and you can't play a team for 100 years. Something needs to be done.
Yes.
But they did. It was throwback day with the old-timey uniforms, and the scoreboard had been turned off, and it was replaced by the guy with placards, and the announcer was standing on the dugout with a big megaphone tube, but it was wired because there was a couple thousand people in there.
But this was actually, Channel 11 was, again, for me, it's like WOR, WPIX. This is where we got our things, where they had the Mets on with Ralph Kiner, who was one of the worst announcers in the world, but was entertaining. And then you had, of course, the Yankees with the Scooter and all them. And when the Scooter was drunk on air, it was hilarious. And I remember one time he came on, he was going on, he drank all this wine, and you could hear him, he thought he's like, man, I butchered that inning. But that was the days of the Bronx Zoo with Reggie and all those guys.
See, but I missed for Pittsburgh, I missed, the great Roberto Clemente and Stargell.
But you had that tradition there.
Yeah, there was the tradition there of Clemente, Stargell, Mazeroski. But I caught some pretty good players in the 90s, Doug Drabeck, Cy Young winner. I saw Barry Bonds when he first started playing, when he would steal what?
And there's a picture of you with them somewhere.
Somewhere there's a picture of a very young me being held by Barry Bonds, and we're trying to find it.
Looks like you're on roids.
Yeah.
But I saw Pawtucket, literally, it was weird. I saw Pawtucket in the parking lot. They announced they were calling up Wade Boggs.
Oh.
And we had Kel Ripken. We had Mike Boddicker. And the funny thing, a friend of mine, it was like Mike Boddicker said, I can't sign an autograph for you. Why? Your pen's out of ink.
No.
But he signed it for him. We had Mike Boddicker, Cal Ripken.
Yes, you had the great players.
Eddie Murray played here for a year. Then a lot of them, because we were the Orioles, but because we were the Orioles. I was going
to say, yeah, that's right.
And they would do the game every time once a year where the Orioles would play. They don't do that anymore with the Twins. No. And we had Joe Mauer and the M&M boys there.
Yeah, see, I knew Joe Mauer was in town. I wasn't able to get down there.
Yeah, those two with the Twins. The irony was people were cheering, yay, the Orioles, they used to be a really good franchise. Now our teams stink. So they go to the Twins. The Twins, they were great. They care about this. They stunk, and then the Orioles team did really good.
Yeah.
So watch what you wait for. But it used to be the Cardinals because that's why it was Red Wings.
Red Wings because but I remember who would have been the big players for the Orioles back then? Was that the Jim Palmer era?
There was like the Earl Weaver, the Jim Palmer, Powell, Brooks Robinson.
Yeah, back in the 70s when they went to the World Series. Oddly enough, both times they went, I think they lost to the Pirates.
They lost to the Pirates. I think the one they were the big
71
favorites.
and 79.
And the one the Pirates lost, Clemente said that was the year before. He said that was the better team, but they lost.
In 70?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that was the better team, but they lost.
Oh, so he was a great...
Frank Robinson was another one.
But Clemente was a player that, my father and my parents, both my parents, a lot of my family got to see. Never. I mean, obviously he died in 1972. And I have to rely on film. And there's some film clips, but man,
well,
that guy
there's the thing now,
cannon.
the Bing Crosby thing, where for years, I guess he couldn't go. Something happened.
Yeah,
he had a lackey film the series, so he's got Mazeroski shot and popped out.
It was Game 7 of the 1960 World Series against the Yankees, the one that the Pirates, were not supposed to win.
Well, the Pirate Parrot was the guy who introduced drugs in the baseball.
Well, that was the doping scandal in the 80s, yeah.
The Pirate Parrot started that. I guess he sold dope on the plane.
But Game 7, Bing Crosby at the time was a part owner of the Pirates. And he had somebody record Game 7 because he was somewhere else and he said, record it, I'm going to listen to it, and I will watch it when I come home if the Pirates win. So yes, the Pirates ended up winning that game. And then in traditional TV back then, they taped over it.
Yeah.
They didn't keep the old tapes, so for the longest time, Game 7 was thought to be gone. And the only time you could have seen it if you watched it on TV. 50 years later, in 2010, somebody was going through his estate, and they found the reels of Game 7. So they transferred it to DVD, and they put it out. I have it. And half of the broadcast is done by the Pirates announcers. The other half is done by the Yankees announcers.
What's amazing with
fantastic.
that, too, if you ever want to go back, I guess it would be the Pirates would beat them by one run, then the Yankees would blow them out.
Well, that's the thing.
They were outscored enormously.
Yeah, the Yankees would win like 10-2, but the Pirates would win 3-2.
I'm going to go back a little bit to a couple other sports and some weirdness for a second, because the only reason I'm going to bring up soccer for a moment is we had the Rochester Lancers we're at our Heartland to see them. And in the 70s, for a while, they had the New York Cosmos, which was like a super team. They had Pelé, Giorgio Canaglia, Franz Beckenbauer, Ricky Davis, who was a big American player. I actually have a Ricky Davis soccer ball that I won at a raffle in school.
The only one of those names I recognize is Pelé.
And all these guys were incredible in their time. But the one thing that stands out for me for the Lancers, they played at Holland Museum. I lived in Gates, which is, you can make it, but it's a little bit away. They played the Cosmos. There were cars lined up because they were like the superstars.
I actually saw a professional soccer match. It was many years ago. It was when I don't know if it wasn't Premier League because there was other teams, but it was the European teams were touring the United States, and they stopped in Pittsburgh for some reason. So my Uncle Frank, who was from Bari, Italy, so he grew up watching soccer. I think he even played a little semi-pro soccer. But we went to see Chelsea and AC Milan play. And that was the only time I'd ever seen a professional soccer game.
Don't say that one to my mechanic. He's on Napoli.
Yeah,
Napoli.
Well, AC Milan got
the other one
I
want to bring up golf for 1 second, because I could say the first time I really watched it, I'll never forget this for some reason. It was the Masters many, many years ago where Dr. Gil Morgan took off his shoes and socks and went in the water and hit a ball out.
I've seen the clips
that
of that.
Sticks in my head for some reason. But back then, Years ago, I think one difference, we had Wide World of Sports, and we had ESPN when ESPN, like MTV,
would actually
had videos.
play sports.
And I remember watching water polo at 12
Well,
o'clock.
yeah, you would turn on ESPN late at night. You would see like Australian rules football, and the weird foreign
please,
sports.
Australian rules football, there's actually there's a video game of it. I still have no idea
how it works.
I'm going to run with the ball, and I'm just going to kick it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to...
And why does the referee wear a trench coat?
I have no idea. We'll do a whole episode explaining it. I suppose we'll get some
We're
pro
gonna
on.
have to learn, but you would see the weird things, and you could see, the world's strongest man.
Which I love.
I love the old world's strongest man.
It started out Wide World of Sports, and now ESPN, does it still have it?
Oh, God, I haven't seen it.
But they would
in
have,
years.
like, Ken Patera, who was legitly an Olympic weightlifter and a
Ken
pro
Patera.
wrestler. He finished third, and all he would say, Bruce Willem pulled him across the line.
Yeah.
The man is fat.
And that was when John Kolb, offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was competing, and he was the reason that Bruce Wilhelm won the gold, because he beat the giant Swede in the tug of war.
But those were fun. I still like to watch them.
Oh, yeah, whenever they play. Every now and then ESPN will play them. Like
But
the
they would
ESPN
have the
Retro.
Globetrotters. They used to have. That's where I first saw Minnesota Fats and Willie Mosconi playing pool.
You would see pool.
And the thing about Minnesota Fats was he was, as we say in wrestling, kayfabe. He was just a hustler. And rumor has it he went around as New York Fats for a while. But what happened with him, his name was Rudolph Wanderoni. He saw the movie The Hustler with Paul Newman, where there's a character, Jack Gleason's Minnesota Fats.
Yeah, Minnesota
Then he
Fats.
started going around claiming that he was the guy.
Yeah, that
but
he was
really
the
wasn't.
inspiration for it.
And if you read about him, he was like a lovable sort of ne'er-do-well.
Yeah.
But Mosconi was legit. And like when Mosconi played him, he killed him.
Oh.
You could see Mosconi in George Thorogood's Bad to the Bone video.
You know what else you would see on ESPN? Bowling.
Oh, I used to
Not
watch
ju-
every Saturday afternoon. I used to watch pro bowling.
And not just pro bowling, but every now and then you would get the trick shot competitions, like the bowling trick shot
And the pool
competition,
ones.
the pool trick shot
Steve
competition.
Mizrak.
Yeah, oh, those were fun.
But then ESPN's gone
Now
to
it's
what,
just
like,
Sports Center, and we're going to cover basketball, and we're going to play Sports Center for 9 hours with these quote-unquote experts.
egomaniacs.
What was it, Stephen A. Smith talking about 3 guys that aren't even in the NFL anymore? Like it's sad.
I think it's a lot of, they're just really wannabes or something. It's no fun.
Yeah, now we need ESPN 8 the Ocho. But speaking of ESPN, we're after bowl season. Actually, the national championship will be played tonight.
So one of my grosses, can I rant for a second?
Yeah, go
Just
ahead.
rant. Back in the day, and I'm feeling old, I'm saying back in the day more.
Well,
This would be a big thing. And number one, it would be horrible because there was always that yin and yang of New Year's. You would have to go back to school. But you would look forward to the bowls because you would have
'cause there's
teams that were, if you lost
really
one
good
game, you
weren't
lost
going to a
one game,
bowl.
you might not be in there.
Yeah.
But you had basically orange, cotton.
yeah, what was it? It was the Rose Bowl, the Orange
well,
Bowl.
that's the granddaddy of
Well,
them
yeah,
all.
the Cotton Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. Those
Yeah.
were the 4.
And then you had, I guess, Blue Bonnet, then the Liberty
Yeah.
Bowl came along,
Yeah,
Gator
and then
Bowl.
the Fiesta
Because you know
Bowl.
Gator Bowl's the whole story. That's how they came up with Gatorade.
I thought it was because it came up at the University of Florida.
It was actually Gator. It might be the Gator Bowl because it was Florida where they made this stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways, now we have,
I look 40 bowl games.
but we have some of the names of these things, like the
Yeah.
Gasparilla Bowl. But you have one that you have to
I just
talk about.
watched,
It's just one of the worst games you've ever seen.
Like I say, as the national championship is being played tonight or yesterday, if
No,
you're
next
listening
week.
to this. No,
This week or
Yeah.
tonight. I don't even know. They played anywhere. I know it's 7th. No, but it's the 7th. But I've seen it on the 14th before.
No,
and
it's
everything else.
it's the 7th this year. But in any event,
See, I'm screwed up now because everything was on New Year's before.
a couple weeks ago was one of the ugliest games I think anybody had ever seen. And it's probably still being talked about. It was the 2018 Cheez-It Bowl.
I would love to
The
break
California.
into that for a second. There was a player for the Ohio Bobcats one year who said they went to go to the Idaho Fans,
Oh yeah,
and
and
he
they
said he
kicked
didn't
him
want to
off-
go.
and They kicked him off the
But
team.
anyways,
I remember he was a punter, and they kicked him off the team because he was an idiot.
I would have wanted not to be in the Idaho famous potato
But the
bowl.
2018 Cheez-It Bowl, it's not the fact that it was named the Cheez-It Bowl, though the trophy was literally filled with Cheez-Its, which was really funny.
I would have played for that.
Yeah, because they're
Okay,
shaking
now that
around.
one I admit I would have played for it.
It was the TCU Horned Frogs, alma mater of the Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson, against the California Golden Bears, alma mater of
Aaron Rodgers, Joe Cap.
Oh, Joe Cap. Okay, we'll go with him.
Jared Goff.
It was the ugliest game. I'm talking, you are in a bowl game. Each team starts a quarterback because they were seniors that had never played in a game in their 4-year college career. 9 interceptions were thrown between the two teams. The California quarterback had 27 passing yards. The over-under of the game was 38 points, and there was no danger of them even approaching the over. The game ended 10-7 in overtime. And at the end of the game, I think it was TCU, because TCU ended up winning the game, had the chance to win the game with a field goal. They called a timeout and brought in another kicker. Just a new kicker, and the kid missed it. So they go to overtime. What happens in overtime? Another goddamn interception. And then apparently there was a new long snapper, and then they brought in another kicker, and this kid finally made it.
As opposed to that crazy game a few weeks ago where they had like the 7 overtimes, the two teams.
Yeah.
But
I'm literally sitting there praying to every god I've ever heard of from every religion, like, please let this continue.
Literally, the way it's going, we could have the Rando Bowl. What are we going to give them?
We'll go down to the dollars, or we'll go down to Goodwill, see what we can find.
But one of the things, bringing up the worst game we've ever seen, I have it. I have the pro one.
All right.
I have the pro one.
Okay.
As you remember, in 1987, they had a strike.
Yeah, actually,
and
real quick, my gym teacher in middle school, he played for the Eagles for one game before unfortunately blowing out his knees.
Still, he played.
He was in the NFL.
These games count. Games.
If you look at the database, the NFL database, he's acknowledged as playing in the NFL.
But they had replacement players.
Yeah.
Buddy Ryan actually won his team over the Eagles because he got playbooks out of Kmart. But one of the worst.
Wasn't that the year that Mark Mosley, the kicker for the Redskins, was the MVP?
I think that was early.
Or was it the 82 strike season? Okay.
But one of the things I saw, it was one of the worst games, the worst game I ever saw. It was a replacement game, the Bills and the Giants at Rich Stadium.
Ooh.
It was a study in, I don't even want to know. It was horrible. The XFL looked pro compared to it.
That's rough.
It was torturous how bad it was. It ended 6-3. And I remember at the end, I think the Bills won 6-3. I remember Bill Parcells' look on his face. The kicker missed like a 30-yard field goal to tie it. He just looked like death incarnate. And it was utterly hapless. And I think that was the catalyst because I heard the Minnesota Vikings said they lost all 3 replacement games. They were going to go back. And I think that was the catalyst where they finally said, we're killing the league.
Yeah. I don't think I could pick the worst game.
Well, that was just, it was a study in futility.
Because here's the era of the Steelers I grew up in. Mind you, by the time I really started watching football, and we haven't talked football yet, so that's what we're going to do now, the Hall of Fame contingents, the Terry Bradshaw, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Joe Green, they had all retired.
And I saw them when they were not at their best. I saw a snow game, the strike year. Terry said he forgot his long underwear. And actually, I have on account by Donnie Shell, who said he hated playing in Buffalo because it was freezing. And I told him, I like tropical Pittsburgh, of course, Donnie, but I'm not going to argue with that, man.
So I grew up in the era, I think, I may remember Mark Malone at quarterback, but I definitely remember Bubby Brister.
The Bubster.
So Bubby Brister throwing to Lewis Lips, who, if he was on any other team, would be a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
I firmly believe
remember
that.
Big Bird, Eric Green.
Eric Green, and then... So that was the era of the Steelers I grew up in. So,
but you know of them, and the thing is, again, we go back to announcers. This guy is unbelievable. Google him sometime because I can't do him justice. Myron Cope.
Oh, Myron Cope. And this is how ingrained it was. On Sundays, we would come in, turn on the TV, find the Steeler game, mute the sound on the television, go to the radio. And this is what the actual turning thing where you had to find it with the needle. And we would listen. God, what radio station was it back then? I think it was 94.5. And it was WWSW 3WS. And we would find the radio broadcast because it was Bill Hillgrove, who still does Steelers broadcasts and I think actually does University of Pittsburgh. Myron Cope, may he rest in peace, a legend in his spare time. also a great sports writer, and Tunch Ilkin.
He invented the terrible towel.
He was the inventor of the terrible towel.
And I can't describe this guy.
I played a clip for you one time.
In just some helium, talk
very, very nasally with a heavy Pittsburgh
and they would
accent.
They would get him wound up, and he would just go on these weird tangents about nothing.
Remember, it was we were listening to it, and he always would make a reference to Nijinsky whenever somebody did something athletic. Like, he looked like Nijinsky out there because he was the ballet dancer. And Tunch Ilkin, who was a former Steelers offensive lineman from Turkey and now a broadcaster, he would poke at the Myron Bear. He said, well, why don't you just say Baryshnikov? And Cope would go, don't cross me, Ilkin. And this is normal. They would just let him talk. 5 or 6 plays could go on, and then nobody cared.
One of the first things, this is something you missed. They used to actually have, I remember one of my first memories of football was the college All-Star game. What they would do is they would have the All-Stars of college play the Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
And I remember them playing the Dolphins. And I think the pro teams would end up maybe played the first guys a little.
Yeah, they were playing for a couple
I actually researched this. They beat them the one year. They beat a Bears team with Hallis because I think Hallis did not.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember there was at least 1 or 2 occasions when the college All-Stars did defeat the pro team. When did they stop doing that?
I honestly don't know, but I remember it was the Dolphins playing college All-Stars. Yeah. That was the first one I ever saw.
And I never saw that because I think by the time I was watching football, it was gone.
Yeah, we just had the football games. One of my earliest memories was still going to get a Christmas tree and watching the Steelers and Colts for some reason. And we had the Steelers dynasty, of course, and the Cowboys.
Well, because you look at the football dynasties, and not talking about the AFL for right now. That'll be another podcast, defunct sports leagues. I just thought of that.
Oh, I was going to say about the USFL, too.
Yeah, write that down. We got a couple defunct sports leagues I want to talk about, but you had the dynasties. Let's go back to see which ones you remember.
One with Joan Collins and all those people. Then they had what were the other ones with Charlton Heston?
The Bears in the 50s, or 40s and 50s. I'd say the Giants / Colts in the 50s. The 60s.
That's for my dad. The Lions actually had a team in the 50s with Bobby Lane that were good.
Yeah, the 60s had to belong to the Packers.
Yes.
There's no question about it. Vince Lombardi's Packers were some of the greatest teams ever.
Oh, and by the way, fans around here, had it been a year earlier at Super Bowl, the Packers would have killed the Bills.
Yeah. 70s were the Steelers.
Oh, yes.
4 Super Bowls. First team to win 3, first team to win 4.
Yep.
Back-to-back twice.
But Dallas was America's team.
Yeah, Dallas was America's team, and Roger Staubach got... nothing but respect for Roger Staubach, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, but he couldn't compete with those guys.
No, and to show you how different the game was then, last year of Staubach's career, they estimate he had 6 or 7 concussions, didn't miss a game.
Nope. Didn't know where he was, but he didn't miss a game.
That's how it was. Shake it off.
Yeah. Who would you give the 80s to? I would say the 49ers.
I would say 49ers overall. You could make a case for Washington.
You could, but I think the 49ers won 3 or 4.
9, you count 90 as that decade of the first year.
Yeah, because 1990 was the end of the 89 season, but it was the end of the 89 season.
I would say 49ers probably because he had the Giants interspersed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the Bears in '85.
The Bears, it was always considered a disappointment with that team that they didn't win more.
Yeah,
because I guess really, I actually read a book on Mike Ditka, and it's like with the '86 Mets. They dismantled the team almost right after that McMahon got hurt.
Oh, McMahon
because everybody remembers the Super Bowl shuffle in the fridge and everything.
The fridge, and mind
you, did you ever see the Grabowski shuffle? I guess that was a video with Ditka dancing around.
Yes.
Never saw it.
And Mike Ditka, Western Pennsylvania native from Aliquippa.
Who basically was saved from working in the steel mines, I guess.
Yeah,
great player, too. You never realize. A lot of people don't realize. He was the first modern tight end.
Yeah,
and I guess he was a psycho as a coach, too. For Dallas, he tried to trip guys on the sidelines and stuff.
The first tight end in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
First pure tight end in the Hall of Fame because they had the flankers or whatever they called them back then. 90s, I'm going to go with the Cowboys. The Emmett Smith, Troy Aikman era?
I would say yes, because I'm trying to think. Because the 49ers won 1, Packers won 1, Broncos won 2.
Yeah, but really...
Redskins won 1.
But really, the Cowboys were so consistent in the 90s.
The thing is, they rued Jimmy Johnson because they said that if he didn't quit, they probably would have won again. But and then, of course... They got handed the one Super Bowl by Neil O'Donnell, in my view.
Oh, and that was the first time. This was 1995, Super Bowl 30. It was the Steelers and the Cowboys from Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe, Arizona. I remember because it was the first time in my lifetime I'd seen the Steelers go to the Super Bowl.
Wasn't it the blast furnace defense? Kevin Green?
No, it was
Greg Lloyd.
What the hell did they call it? No, the Steel Trap.
Oh, because who was the blast furnace? Was that them?
I think it was them.
I thought they had one called the blast
It
furnace.
may have been
for a while.
later. It may have been earlier, but it was Kevin Green, Greg Lloyd, Levon Kirkland, and Chad Brown. They called him the
And I think Rod
the Steel
Woodson was
Trap.
hurt for that year, and he just stepped on the field.
Yeah, he
for it.
stepped on the field briefly.
Because then, ironically, Lloyd got hurt, and then he played.
Yeah, but and those 2 interceptions to Larry Brown of the Dallas Cowboys, who went on to do not much else.
The story was that Larry Brown was not a very good player, and he signed this big free agent contract with Oakland. They were all laughing because the Cowboys said that he was out of position anyways. But
Yeah.
who was Neil O'Donnell even throwing to?
That was my question. But although, random fact, Neil O'Donnell, one of the strongest quarterbacks to ever come down the pipe. I think in college he had a 400.
Played for Maryland, I know that.
Yeah,
The
475-pound bench press or something.
And it's not sour grapes either.
No.
But the one with the Packers, the Steelers lost that game. The
I
Packers did not win
was
it.
at that game down at Jerry World in Dallas. Or
Which is
Arlington, technically.
How is that? Is it like a city?
Oh, my God. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing. But it was beautiful to behold. And trust me. The food was, well, we found barbecue. But in any event,
It's Texas. Jeez,
Yeah.
what do you want?
I'd go back, but it's in Texas. Sorry, Texas. Not sorry. But I watched that game, and even the Packers fans, as we were leaving, they weren't hooping and hollering. Even a few Packers fans actually said to me, "It's like, you guys lost that game. We didn't win that game."
Yeah.
However, I was in Detroit for Super Bowl 40. The buses
But you fooled George the Animal Steel about this
Right.
one. Sorry, George.
But that was the one I did not see any of the Steelers' touchdowns. I'm there. I'm in the stands. I had to go to the bathroom. So I left the stand. As soon as I turned the corner, had my back to the field, the Steelers scored their first touchdown. It's like, son of a bitch. Next one. I'm hungry. I'm going to go get something to eat. As soon as I turn around, boom, Steelers
That was
scored
my
a touchdown.
curse of the Penguins for years. I would go to the bathroom and they would score a goal. But would you have to say Patriots?
Well, and then the third touchdown, they threw me. They told me to leave, and as soon as I left, they scored the third touchdown. But in the 2000s,
Wouldn't help you if you were a Bills fan.
no, in 2000s, yes, Patriots. No
Love
doubt.
them, hate them.
Love them, hate them. They have, although their dynasty is coming to an end with a 41-year-old quarterback, a useless offensive quote unquote weapon,
A tight end whose energy drink effort's horrible.
and their deep threat who got an indefinite ban for his 5th drug infraction.
And the amazing part is Bill Belichick was supposed to coach the Jets. He decided he didn't
Yeah,
want to.
he was there
coached the Jets for a day.
Couple of years or 2 years he was
He
there.
coached under Parcells. The idea was he was going to take over,
Yeah.
and he just decided he didn't like the situation.
And weirdly, I remember him in the 90s when he was coaching the Cleveland
Oh,
Browns
yeah.
before Art Modell up and sold him to
Yeah,
Baltimore.
and the other one was he would have been the coach of the Giants after the Super Bowl, but Parcells left so late he already took the Browns job.
Yeah.
And one of the things I remember, and this maybe we'll talk about how generations change sometime.
Yeah.
But I remember in the day I used to love all the old sports board games before computer games. They were fun. Stratomatic, APBA, they had Play Dirt. Yes, they still exist if you look around.
God, I don't even remember.
But
any
they
of
were
those.
loads of fun. I actually had the NHL when I played the whole Penguin season.
Oh my.
And now computer games, obviously, which to me are more or less like video games. I mean, they're
Yeah,
fun,
it's
but
the same thing.
you know, what are you going to do?
Well, actually, you know how we were grousing about the lack of coffee on Christmas?
What do we have to do this year?
Yeah,
Maybe
well-
we'll do an
well-
advent calendar.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, today is Orthodox Christmas, and
Is
as
there a
luck would,
greeting for that?
Merry Christmas. I actually don't know. That's a fair question.
I don't know either. I have this quick story. One year I had 2 Christmases because I was in the old Soviet Union, and like you with the Steelers, I put the Soviet Union out of business by
Yeah.
going to the bathroom there. And I was neat. I had 2 Christmases that year, and it was nice seeing all the parents taking their children out on the frozen Baltic.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting sight, and I had 2 Christmases. But I think, do we have?
Yeah, we actually have Christmas presents from our sponsor, because here's the tag. I'm going to read it. Oh, Jesus. To Carnival of Randomness, open on
sponsored
Mike,
us?
Upsitnik and Associates. Yes, our sponsor, Upsitnik and Associates Law Offices. Find them on Facebook. Upsitnik and Associates, and at their websites, upsitnikslaw.com, sent us Christmas gifts. I don't know what the hell it is. He said to open them up on air. So, Rob, here's your box.
Okay, this may be the
Here's my
final.
box. Yeah, oh, and if, by the way, this is the last time
There's something else in here, too. This may be the final one. Watch out for... Hey, you got a reindeer.
Yeah, I got a reindeer. You got...
What the hell is this?
Yours? You got a shirt.
Okay.
Oh, come on, read it.
Okay, I'm trying to visualize. It's very colorful, and it has a bunch of planets. It says, back in my day, we had 9 planets.
That's funny.
There's little Pluto.
Okay.
Saturn's really neat looking.
And then
This is hilarious.
I have a green shirt with a stick figure riding a dinosaur silhouette. If history repeats itself, I'm getting a dinosaur.
Well,
Yes.
we may not have coffee, but we have some belly laughs.
Yeah.
Was it Neil deGrasse Tyson who killed Pluto?
Yeah, technically.
No.
And then here's another one. This one's actually kind of heavy. That one's to
This
you.
is like a Mickey Mouse.
You got Mickey Mouse paper. I got classic Norman Rockwell Santa.
So, it's a box.
That's from Uncommon Goods.
It's a box.
It's a tumbler. Or a rocks glass, I should say. At least I got one.
Yeah. You must have got him two. Yep.
Oh, it must have had the 2 for sale.
It's got a cake writing on
What is it? The George Washington Founding Fathers Rocks Glass on Uncommon Goods. We're not sponsored by Uncommon Goods. I just like them.
Oh, it's got some sayings here on it. I can't really read
Here,
it.
I'm opening up. Let's see, you got... here's the big one. Let's read that.
Yeah, read yours. Because I don't wanna break
Honesty is always the best policy. Well, that's ironic.
That's ironic these days.
Well, and then
Well,
that note, in all honesty, we got our Christmas presents.
Well,
Thank you to
how
our
about
sponsor. Go visit them. They'll help you with your legal needs.
And maybe give you a present.
And maybe get a present. Your present could be a resolution to your legal issue. So, happy 2019. It's our second episode. We're still here. They haven't found us yet. So, from all of us at the Carnival of Randomness, I'm Zach.
I'm Rob. I think you're up at bat.
I think I'm up at bat. And, Jesus saves. Lemieux scores on the rebound.
And no Viking kicker can make a field goal.
Nope. So, we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.